So welcome. My name is Jamie, and I'm with Family Voices of Minnesota. You're joining us today for a webinar on journaling for self-care, and our presenter is Brenda Hudson, who I will introduce more thoroughly in just a minute. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, I have muted the participants, and I will take you off of mute for the sharing portion. That does not mean that we don't want to hear you in between, so if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand. You can also use the chat feature to just chat a question that I can ask to Brenda. So we do encourage sharing. We just use the mute to maintain the integrity of the recording. So once again, my name is Jamie O'Connor. I'm Outreach Coordinator with Family Voices of Minnesota. If you're not familiar with Family Voices and the Connected Parent-to-Parent Peer Support Program, we provide information, assistance, and support to families who have children with complex health care needs. We do that in a variety of ways, but we offer emotional support, understanding, acceptance, so that parents do not feel alone. We also often match parents with other parents around the state of Minnesota. We have over 180 trained volunteer support parents. Family Voices of Minnesota is the state affiliate organization of Family Voices National, and we're also the state alliance member of Parent to Parent USA. And if you're not familiar with those organizations, I would encourage you to check them out on their website. So thank you for joining us today. We have a wonderful webinar on journaling for self-care. And Brenda Hudson, who is one of our trained volunteer support parents, is presenting for us today. Brenda is a writing instructor, curriculum developer, and she's also the mom to a child who has complex health care needs. Brenda's been teaching expressive writing for 6 years and is the owner of Voiced Life, that's VoicedLife.com. Through Voice Life, she offers a variety of writing workshops for adults and youth. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you, Jamie, and thanks everyone who's here on this webinar live and also those who check in the recording. I'm really excited to be here. I am a fan of Family Voices. You've really helped me when I was first navigating my daughter's diagnosis. So I'm super appreciative of what you offer. And also journaling, I've been writing myself for many years before I found that I needed to do some journaling for self-care around my daughter's diagnosis. So I'm really happy to present this information that I hope everyone can use to any extent. So I'm going to bust some writing and journaling myths in a moment, but my overall approach is that writing, even for a few minutes, and it doesn't have to be every day, can be really helpful. So I'm going to show you how. And then I think we mentioned in the webinar description that there's an opportunity to do a little bit of writing on this webinar. So if you have pen and paper or your computer screen to hand, however you want to do that.
So Brenda, this might be a good time for us to talk about while this webinar is recorded, Brenda and I, when we were talking about this, wanted to offer something recorded as an introduction for families. But in addition, Brenda's generously going to also facilitate some private, unrecorded virtual journaling sessions for parents like us, parents who have children with special health care needs. And the first one is in July. I will send out an email to participants. But just to know that we're touching a little bit today, and then Brenda's very generously offered to a little bit more of a safe space for sharing and working together. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great reminder. So this webinar is a lot of me talking, which won't always be the case, but I do want to just talk about some of the concepts around journaling and how to take good care of yourself. And I'll just let you get your toe into the water, testing some journaling practices here. And we'll get into more, and I can answer some questions too at the end about what a monthly safe space for journaling led by me for Family Voices will be like. So with that, Jamie, if you wouldn't mind moving my slide on to the next one. Thank you. So here in this webinar, I want to talk to you a little bit about what journaling is, and also present a couple of techniques that you can use right away. And within this webinar, as I mentioned, I'll give you a little bit of practice time. So they're really short writes. So don't feel like you're going to be writing for 5 or 10 minutes here. They're short prompts. And then we'll have some discussion on how to use the techniques that I present, how you can use them for self-care in your situation. And at the end, we'll have time for any questions, concerns that you might have about journaling. And I'm just really excited to lead this for you. Okay, and we can go to the next. So the first thing on talking about what is journaling, you probably have some ideas. Maybe you have had a journaling practice in the past, or maybe you are writing right now. Just the way I view it is it's writing that explores your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, kind of like I guess the thing that most people think of is the Dear Diary entry, right, where you kind of talk about what you've done with your day, how you're feeling, your frustrations, maybe even your victories. But journaling, it tends not to be plot-driven. So we're not talking about writing stories with arcs, like fiction or even memoir. It's kind of writing in the moment. So that, just going forward, that's kind of how that's how we'll be practicing journaling here in our sessions together today, and if you continue on with the monthly session. So what does this mean? How can writing help you get through what you're going through? How can it help you take care of yourself? So a couple of thoughts that I have, and a lot of these come from me benefiting from my writing practice too. So I'm here. I am going through it daily with my daughter. So I've seen how journaling can help, and how it helps me, and I think how it can help others is it can help you process your thoughts and feelings and what's happening. Right, like we're busy in our day, and we're just getting through it. And tomorrow's another day. If we pause and stop and even jot down, it can be as simple as a few sentences, what happened, how you're feeling. It is really a way for you to acknowledge what's happening in your life and how you're feeling. And I'll go forward. I'll tell you a little bit about how you don't need how you can write very quickly so that you're not adding more to-dos on your list. By journaling. I don't want journaling to be another thing that you feel like you have to do that ends up being a burden. But it can help you slow down too. We are all very busy in our lives and in what we're dealing with. But again, coming to the page, even for really short amounts of time, can help us just catch our breath. The other thing that journaling for self-care can do, it helps you find some of the answers for things that you're going through, your own truth. I believe that we do have a lot of the answers that we need within ourselves, and sometimes we're just going so quickly, we don't even stop to pause and ask ourselves, what is our truth? And maybe we do have some ideas rattling around in our heads as we, just go on throughout our day. But really stopping to put that down on the page, it kind of transforms things. I'll talk more about that in a bit when we look at a particular technique for that. The other thing that it can do for self-care is to help you keep a record of what's going on. One way, just by acknowledging what's happening, when, how you're feeling. For instance, if you are currently going through kind of a more difficult patch, I find it really helpful to know that I've been there before, that I've had other hard patches that I've gone through, and then to look back and see what helped, or, how long did it last, just other things that you can look at through your writing. It helps you know where you've been. And then lastly, it can help others in your family too. I think the techniques that I'm going to show you here, if you like them and try them, you might even get your other family members to give them a try too, for helping themselves. So I can talk about that as we go on too. And if you have any questions about any of these at the end or as we go on, just let us know. So we can scoot on to the next one. So here are some journaling rules for us. I do definitely have rules in quotation marks because the first bullet point is there are no rules. So I want you to be really free in how you write. So the blank page or Dear Diary, where you just come to the page and you have no guidelines like what do I write about, how long do I write about. I'm going to give you some techniques so that you don't have to come to the blank page and not sure what to write about or for how long. So we're going to give you some definite techniques so that you're guided. And the other thing is you don't have to write for hours. I know it can be intimidating to think about starting a writing practice because we are busy. We have a lot of things we have to fit into our schedules. How am I going to fit in, an hour to write each day? Well, you'll see with these little prompts that I'm going to give you that they can be really quick, and it's quite amazing what the depth that you can get to even in a short amount of time, especially if you know that you're only going to be writing for, say, 2 minutes on a particular topic. So don't feel like you have to write for hours at a time, and you don't have to write every day. Don't feel like you have to set yourself up, that the only way to get benefits from journaling is to have a everyday practice. Certainly you can, but if you don't feel like you're missing out or that you're not doing it correctly. So again, just as I said, I really want you to feel free and okay to explore your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions on the page. And I'm going to show you some ways to make sure that you do this in a safe way. And by that I mean, sometimes when we are going through really rough things, if we just come to the page without any idea of where we're going with this or how long we're going to write, we can end up kind of spiraling, like just keep writing about the same thing and not have anywhere to go. So I'm giving you some techniques that are designed to keep you kind of in a safe place where you can dive down into the really difficult things, but then have a way to come up and catch your breath and make sure that you check in with yourself and know that you're doing okay and that you're okay to either keep exploring the topic that you're on or take a break or know if you need to, talk to someone else outside of the page of your journal. So again, I want to just clarify that my intent here is to give you some techniques that you can use that are doable in your life and in a way that keeps you safe and that keeps you taking care of yourself. Okay, and we can go on to the next slide. So here's where I'd love for you to try. It's one thing to hear me talk about what journaling is, but I want you to try a writing warm-up with me. So what I'm going to do is pose 3 separate questions, and you're going to write for just 90 seconds on each question as I pose them. So I don't want you to worry about the time. I'm going to be the timekeeper. I'm going to give you the first prompt in a moment, and then I want you to try writing without stopping or editing yourself. It's just 90 seconds. You can kind of consider this like a writing sprint. So just keep going, even if even if you don't know what to write next, if you're typing, just keep typing. It can be gobbledygook. If you're writing on the page, you can just write the words, I don't even know what to say next, but keep the pen moving. And it keeps your brain engaged. And the last bit of advice I want to give you as we go for this 3-question warm-up is feel free to interpret the questions any way you like. So they're going to be 3 short prompts, and there's no right or wrong way to interpret them. You interpret them the way you like. So as Jamie mentioned at the beginning, we'll come back then and have a sharing if you like, and that sharing would be edited out of any recorded webinar version. So if there aren't any questions, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to pose the first prompt for you, where you write without stopping or editing yourself for 90 seconds, and then I'll give you the next, and then the next. So can I have the next slide, and we'll start our... Okay, so who am I? Go ahead and answer that on the page or the screen for 90 seconds. I'll let you know when time's up, and go. Okay, and get ready to come to a stopping point, perhaps finish the thought or sentence that you're on now. And we're going to move on to the second one. So take a deep breath. And the next question for you is, why am I here? So 90 seconds, writing without stopping on that. Okay, and get ready to come to a stopping point for this. Finish up your thought or sentence. And again, take a deep breath for your final question. Again, for 90 seconds. You can have that third one come up. What do I want? So 90 seconds, the last question, what do I want? Okay, and get ready to come to a stopping point for this one as well. Okay, so, excuse me, what I'd like you to do, one more thing with this writing warm-up. Now I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to quickly skim what you've written, and if you're working on the page, if there's a word or a phrase that jumps out at you for whatever reason, mark it down, underline it. If you have a question that comes up to you about what you wrote, jot that down in the margins or type it just right there. It's called a reflection write, so I want you to quickly skim what you wrote, and then at the very end, if you've noticed any, any thoughts that come to mind about how this was for you as a write, or any other questions you have, or maybe you notice that there's a theme across all 3 of your responses for these questions. Just no pressure, just a quick skim, underline, highlight any words that jump out at you, and then at the end maybe jot down just a thought or 2. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for that, and then we'll reconvene and see if anyone wants to share anything. Okay, and that was 2 minutes. So if you haven't gotten all the way through, that's okay. I wanted to give you an idea of what a reflection write comprises, so you just had to practice with that. Jamie, can you forward the slide, please? The other thing I'll just say about these three particular questions, they're really great as questions that you can come back to as often as you like. I have a friend who has, she calls it her 3-question journal, and it's a dedicated journal just for these questions. And she'll answer these questions fairly regularly, and she's amazed at both the differences and the similarities that occur throughout time as she just explores these questions. And sometimes she gives herself, longer to write, maybe 5 minutes for a question sometimes. But again, it's a way of keeping track of what's going on with her, kind of logistically in life, and also more interior, like what's going on with her emotionally. So that's an idea that you might want to try. Okay, well, thank you for giving it a try. We will have time for questions at the end, too. So let me move on with keeping yourself safe. I talked a little bit about that earlier, about how you make sure you don't end up feeling worse about things just because you're spending a lot of time on the page covering old ground and not getting anywhere. So here are some ideas and certainly principles that I use when I lead journaling sessions. So we always start with an intention. So here you just started with 3 different prompts. Oh, and Jamie, do you need to re-record? Oh, no, you are recording. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. So starting with an intention or a prompt, just like we did with these 3 questions. It's just a way so that you don't come to a blank page and are not sure where to go. I always suggest that people start with a time limit. Just give yourself a time limit to check in with yourself. So especially if you're writing about something that's heavy or, just quite emotional, maybe give yourself 3 minutes initially, set a timer. And after a 3-minute write, just check in with yourself, see that you're doing okay. Sometimes after the initial timer goes off, I'll stop and do something else and come back to the question if I want. And then finally, don't forget to do a reflection write at the end, like we practiced after the 3 questions. The reflection write is really interesting because when you're journaling, you're writing in the moment. You're getting your thoughts and ideas down, and hopefully you're not, you don't feel like you have to edit yourself on the page. You can just let what comes up in your mind onto the page. But then if you just leave it at that, you kind of forget. When you're journaling, you're in the writing mode. But when you do the reflection write, it is a reflection, so you get to re-experience what you wrote. And especially if you jot down any notes to yourself or highlight questions or phrases that jump out at you, or at the very end, jot down some notes of just noting what you experienced while you were writing or reading, or sometimes other questions come up that you might want to explore later. So doing that adds another level of awareness, I feel. So that's also a way to help yourself stay safe in your writing. I think we can go to the next slide, too. So I'm going to just very quickly give you a couple of other techniques that you might want to explore. And certainly these are techniques that we'll be using in the facilitation, the guided facilitations that we'll be doing through Family Voices. So springboards is a technique that help you launch in a particular direction. What you just experienced with the 3 questions, they are a version of springboards. I guess it's another name for a prompt, simply. So they're simple statements or questions. The thing that I find interesting about springboards is if you ask yourself a statement, you might find that your written response to that statement is more logical and thought-based. And if you address the same topic as a question, your responses might be more emotional or feelings-based. So what can be interesting is if you're looking at a particular topic, you might want to pose a question to yourself about that, and then right away just flip it to a statement-based prompt and write that down, and then compare. It's interesting that you can get at different things based on how you pose the springboard to you. So let's see, why am I here? You could turn that into a statement, something like, I am here because, and go from there. So consider statements and questions. And then you can also start creating your own list of springboards. I have a page in my journal of things that occur to me that I might want to explore, questions that pop up into my head when I'm doing something else. And then I use that as, I guess, material for my journaling. So if you can go ahead to the next slide, I just have some ideas for you. So what's going on? That's something that you can ask yourself. What if? What do I need to know for today? I find that's a really good question to ask yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed. It helps you kind of focus. One thing I know for sure, I don't want to forget the first thought I had this morning, and what keeps coming back to me is. So these are just some springboards that you might want to play around with. You probably can come up with your own list. And you see that there's a mix of questions and statements here. And again, you can just come to the page with, if you want to spend just a few minutes on a particular question, but you get to determine how long you want to write for. So this next technique, as you can see, is just a doodle. That's all it is. This is a great technique to just calm your mind. I do this kind of spiral thing that you see here when I'm on hold, on a phone call, making appointments, doctor's appointments, or just when I'm feeling anxious. I just start with a simple dot in the middle, and then I try and go really slowly and just keep the lines as close to each other as I can. And it's really amazing how that can calm your mind. This is something I also have my daughter do, so this might be something that you want to offer your kids. And it's fun to play with different colors, too. So we can advance the slide for another. So I also want to offer you this technique. It's called illegible writing, and as you can see, I really hope you can't see the individual words here, because I wrote this when I was pretty upset with my husband one day. But all it is you write quickly, and certainly you don't have to write neatly. If you want to just get something off your chest, write for a few lines, and then all you do is come back to that original line and write right over it. So this one, maybe I wrote a line 3 times, but I go maybe write 5 or 6 lines and then go back up to the top and keep going. And again, it's a stream of consciousness. Just let whatever feelings come out onto the page. And it's not something you're going to use to read again. You can't. I can't even remember what this was about. Or so it's cathartic to get your emotions out. And then you don't ever have to worry about anyone coming across it either. Because they won't be able to read it. But there's something really freeing about being able to say what you want to say on the page. And it looks messy, which is also, I feel like, its own therapy, its own form of therapy. So maybe give illegible writing a try if you need to. I suppose you could do it if you're also really happy, but I think it's a great one if you're upset about something or trying to work through something emotional. Okay, and one more slide. So the inner wisdom technique, as I mentioned earlier, I really believe that we do hold a lot of our own answers. This is a technique we'll play with in the facilitated sessions, but all it is a dialogue with yourself on the page. And you can come to yourself with, okay, I don't know what to do about X. And so what you would do is you get to ask your inner wisdom self any question. And the deal is that kind of the agreement with your inner self is that your inner self is going to respond honestly. So you get to ask questions, your inner self responds honestly. Sometimes your inner self turns the tables and starts asking questions of you, and then your responsibility is to answer honestly. So what this means on the page is I start with, it looks kind of like a screenplay where I'll say me, and then I ask what it is, and then I'll do inner wisdom IW and a colon, and then the inner wisdom responds. And I just ask my deep self. And it feels maybe a little strange at first, but if you keep going, you find that you kind of get into a rhythm. And it's great. You get to make any statements you wish to make, and you're being heard by your deepest self and on the page. So before you start this, you just come up with a question for yourself, something like what's going on. If there's a specific thing you want to explore, it can be that topic too. So just to say, I won't have us practice this here, but it's something that we will be doing together. But that is also a great way to tap into our own inner wisdom and our inner strength too. And Jamie, is there another one here, or are we at? Not yet. So I gave you a super quick rundown of some techniques that we'll be practicing together in facilitated sessions. But I hope I also gave you enough that you can go off and practice any of these right now. And again, you'll see that you don't have to write for a really long period of time. In fact, sometimes just writing for really short bursts and not stopping or editing yourself is the best way to go. And I just want to take any pressure off of, the obligation of, I have to do this every day. So that is what I have to offer. Jamie, was there anything else you wanted to add, or can we just open it up for questions?
Yeah, I think we should open up for questions.
Yeah.
I will unmute everyone again, but you can also type your question in and have me read it if that's your preference. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Nope. Was there someone who was going to speak? But
The conference has been unmuted.
So I have a question.
So maybe, yeah, go ahead.
Hopefully. I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone again?
No, go ahead.
Can you talk about the writing environment? Because I know that many of us as parents, period, but especially as parents of children who maybe need more supervision and attention, find the quiet space to be hard to come by, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I sort of imagine journaling as being something you would only do in private. So can you talk about how that might look different?
Yeah, and this is something that's a great question, and something that you might want to just be conscious of for yourself as you maybe start exploring some of these different journaling techniques. But boy, I kind of gave up the hope of finding quiet space and, privacy. I guess I got really good at taking advantage of really short, snatched moments. And that's why I feel like having a question to jump off from is really helpful. And I'll often use the what's going on. When I feel like I'm feeling a little bit anxious, I might not even know why other than this general sense that there's a lot going on. But when it might be while I'm getting breakfast or something, and I'll just have a piece of paper. I guess I have journals or I just have informal bits of paper all over that I will go to and write for 30 seconds. And oftentimes it's not even full sentences. It might be a bulleted list. And just that, it really helps me. So that's just one way. So I'll try and capture what I can in the moments that I can with what I have to hand. Like that's the down and dirty, right? And then there will be times when I want to explore more, when there's something, that I want to spend some quality time with. And I guess I would just say experiment with what works for you. I've been able to get up early, and by early I mean 10 minutes early, and spend 10 minutes writing before the day really starts. And I know everyone, that might not work for everyone. Or I'll let my husband know, I want 10 minutes. Can you, I want to carve out 10 minutes at this time. So sometimes it's like scheduling a meeting, really. Or you can do that for longer, too. So I know it's really hard, though, just because of our obligations and things that are going on. But being aware, maybe, and trying different things. I guess that's what I would suggest. Try different things. Don't feel like you're always going to get that really quiet, solitary time. Let yourself write for, these snatched moments that you can, and see if that can actually fulfill a need for you. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I think for me, it might make me, especially in the beginning, feel a little vulnerable to have those pieces of paper lying around.
Oh, right. Yeah, I just have blank pieces lying around. Once I've written on them, they go somewhere safe.
Gotcha.
But I guess I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for letting me clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have questions? So maybe just just a show of hands, if that's possible, if you think you might try one of these writing techniques in the next week or so, or do you think they resonate with you, or?
Wait, I see a hand raised.
Okay.
I'm excited to try a few, and I'm excited to know I see another hand raised, that my doodling serves a purpose.
Yes, doodling is really, really helpful. And they also say, if you're doodling while you're listening to, I don't know, like at a meeting, or I guess I don't know if I would recommend outright doodling during doctor appointments, but it actually engaging the hand while you're listening actively can help you retain the information better. So,
Interesting.
But for me, it definitely helps calm things down in my racing brain.
Sure, especially in that waiting time.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about what the facilitated journaling sessions that we're offering starting in July will look like, Brenda?
Sure, yeah. So just in terms of what the writing part will look like, I'll talk to that, and if you want to talk about the logistics of the meeting, feel free to jump in about that, Jamie.
Okay.
But yeah, so it will be an hour session. What will be is there's usually a really simple writing warm-up, just to kind of get you in practice. So just like today, maybe that would be for 90 seconds. I'd give you a prompt, and you'd write for 90 seconds. Usually there's some kind of theme, so there might be a topic that we address. Maybe something like self-care. Or it's usually broad enough that you can come at it from, your specific angle, but it'd be, relevant for all of us. And we'll introduce a different writing technique, a different journaling technique, and there'd be a short explanation, and then we'd go ahead and try it. And maybe the write itself would be 5 minutes or so, and then there would be optional sharing. And depending on how it's going, there might be another short write. So it's really a way for us to, we want to offer you different ways to honor what's going on in your lives and to offer a safe place where you can explore those things and try new writing techniques. And then the sharing, any sharing we would do would be, closed and safe. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Jamie?
I think just to be specific that these sessions are only open to parents or caregivers of any type who have children or youth with special health care needs. So it would be in a safe space with people who get it.
Right.
And
yes,
of course,
definitely.
it's free of charge. In terms of the logistics, I think we're going to use the same ReadyTalk platform that we use for these webinars. We just will not hit the record button. They will just not be recorded. It would just be like a meeting that we all have, and then when we're finished, we step away from. So I will send more details out in terms of how to register, and then you can share with people that might benefit.
Great, thank you.
Are there
any other questions
before we wrap up? I'm sorry, Brenda.
Nope, same thing. Yeah, just wanted to offer any more questions.
We have one comment. Jess says, I'm looking forward to the upcoming journaling sessions. Thanks for the great information to get me started.
Oh, great. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. And, Jamie, if I can just add, if anyone starts writing and feels like
Uh-oh, Brenda. I don't know if it's me, but I think I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can. I heard you say if anyone starts writing. And then
yeah, so if anyone starts writing and has any questions or concerns about how it's going for them, is it okay to offer them to reach out to me via you, Jamie, or I just want to be available in case anything comes up before we meet in July.
Yeah, I'll make that part of our follow-up email, and I'll get with you after this to find out what will work best for you in terms of connecting.
Great.
But absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for your time today and your energy and your expertise. I loved the webinar today, and I'm really looking forward to these sessions and just being able to offer them for families.
I'm excited too, yeah. I think, I'll be very excited to be part of this.
All right, well, everyone enjoy your summer day, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.